check it out. We are at the New York Stock Exchange right here on Wall Street in New York City. I know it looks a little bit intimidating, but don't let it fool you. It is much easier to get started in the stock market than you think. Anyone can do it. Welcome back to Dinero. We are going to be talking about the stock market. Don't get scared. I promise it's going to be okay. We are getting ready to talk to financial educator Linda Garcia, who is from Texas, Mexicana. She breaks this down in a way that feels like you can learn it and has so much information about this world to share with the community. So when you think of New York City, you often think of Broadway, Fifth Avenue, and of course, Wall Street. We are at the New York Stock Exchange, the biggest financial exchange in the world that's been operating since the 1700s. Buying a share of the stock market means you are buying a portion of a publicly traded company, which is a corporation whose shareholders have a claim to the company's assets and profits. But BIPOC communities have been largely missing out on this wealth-building tool. Until now. Growing up, I was never exposed to the stock market. I didn't know anyone that was actually an active investor. And when I would go to do research or learn a little bit more, I would feel dumb, like I was learning a whole new language. So for a long time, I kept myself out of that world because I didn't think it was for me. One of the ways that inspired me to get involved in the stock market was to see someone that looked and sounded like me get involved in the first place. Linda!
Hi!
¿Me ves? ¿Me escuchas?
Yes, how are you?
I'm good, how are you doing? So why even get involved in the stock market? How does this generate generational wealth?
There's 3 ways to build wealth in this country. The first is being an entrepreneur. The second is by real estate, and the third is by stock market. But for so many of us in our community, it's really challenging to let go of money and invest it, most especially in the stock market.
So what does this mean?
Only 15% of Americans are direct shareholders of the stock market. Out of those 15%, 1% are Black and 0.5% are Latina. This is why I've made the stock market my mission, because it is completely untapped when it comes to our community.
Now I'm part of the 0.5% of Latinas who are invested in the stock market, and that's huge in itself. But what it took to get there is a whole other story. I had to work on my mindset, allocate money to this budget for the stock market, and educate myself. And I'm still on that journey. For first timers, if you can break down maybe like the terms that get used in this world.
Absolutely. Imagine you're at the grocery store and you see that apples are in stock. You're going to purchase 1 apple or 2 apples. That would be the same thing as purchasing 1 share or 2 shares. There are such things as fractional shares, which means you can purchase a fraction of a share. It won't cost you as much as the full share.
So think of this as a fractional share.
A market index tracks different companies and different areas of the market. Sometimes people have heard of the NASDAQ, the Dow, and the S&P 500, which tracks the top 500 companies in the country. So it's a really good barometer on what the economy is doing.
This basket of fruit is a lot like an index fund. This would be Walmart. This would be Apple. This would be Microsoft.
If you're going to invest in an index fund, you're investing in the market index. You're not necessarily investing into those companies directly.
So why even invest in an index fund? Well, it comes down to risk and diversification. So if the value of one of your shares went down, you still have your other fruit. That is why this is such a popular option. So what can you tell first timers about getting involved in the stock market?
One thing that's really important in understanding is investing is not taking your money in and out of the stock market. That's the trading. Very similar to flipping houses. Flipping houses is not a long-term investment. What I teach my community is long-term investment in the stock market from like 10 plus to 30 years of holding that position, potentially even giving that portfolio over to your children, nieces, or nephews, truly building like generational wealth.
So what does it mean to invest in the long term? What would my return have looked like had I invested in an index fund 20 years ago? Let's do a little math. So the S&P historically has had a return of about 9% every year for the last 20 years. So if you had invested 10K in January 2001, the first day of trading, you would have had over 45K at the end of 2022. Just by having invested and left it there.
What I didn't realize until now is that there is no barrier to entry when it comes to the stock market. You don't need a lot of money and you don't need a good credit score. For first timers who are interested in the stock market, what would you say is the best course of action?
This is really something that has been made to feel inaccessible, but you literally can put $5 into a brokerage account. They can't deny you because your last name is Rodriguez. They can't deny you because of the color of your skin. Buy a fractional share and boom, you have an asset overnight. But you also have to be a responsible investor. And so while you might feel inspired to take action and start investing, you have to tap into resources and educate yourself on being a responsible owner of the stock that you are holding.
The stock market has always felt like a club only for rich white men. But if the buying power of the Latinos in the United States is about 2 trillion, think about that, it's like the size of a country, then we should be involved in the stock market. If you can fast forward down the line, like what does that look like when Latinx can help really bridge that gap?
That whole concept that a lot of us grew up with, especially children of immigrants, of like, we have to work really hard for money, begins to dismantle because we start to see our money working for itself. But also there's an even bigger reason to invest in the stock market. The shareholders of a company make decisions for the company. Just imagine what it would be like if we had more people of color buying into the stock market to own a piece of those companies, what that would mean for the way they hire, for the way their board members look, because it's true when they say that publicly traded companies only care about their investors. So how about we try to make more of their investors become BIPOC?
If we're shareholders and we're part owners, then I see that changing the environment inside of these businesses. I see diversity, I see equity. That's what I want, that is for sure.
Okay, let's recap. You can invest in index funds or shares or even fractional shares of an individual company. Be a responsible investor. Understand the risk and do your homework. Anyone can invest in the stock market. So get started.
So we've talked about financial generational trauma, budgeting without depriving yourself of joy, debt without the guilt and shame. And now with stocks, we're looking towards the future. And this is an invitation to dream. In order to think about what we want our money to do for us, we have to allow ourselves to dream. What does that look like? What is the vision? Where do you see yourself 10, 20 years from now? And how much money do you need to make that happen? This is the opportunity to do that, because if you do not have a dream to fixate all this money on, it's less likely it's going to happen. So allow yourself to dream big. Stay tuned, because next we're going to be talking about retirement.